Hello. Wow. Okay, great. We are live. Hello. Welcome, welcome to another exciting episode of the Friday Night Hangout. It's Friday. It is Friday. Literally, it is Friday. Oh my goodness. I'm so happy because this week has been super, long, hectic. But I'm excited that for most of us, we've come to the end of our work week. So, welcome to the Friday Night Hangout, and I'm your host, Joy Odeso. I hope you're doing well, and I hope that you're keeping up. And if you're in my country, Nigeria, this is that time when we really need to really lean in, right? Hey, Ezine, welcome. So happy to see you. I'm so excited to be here tonight. Okay, so great is another fantastic episode of the Friday Night Hangouts. And do you like my glasses? Oh yes, I lost the other one, and then I got this one. So I'm feeling cool with this one, by the way. So, but I'm happy. I'm happy that it's another Friday because this week has been it's been so long, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful to God for all the opportunities to serve. Yes, I see you, Victoria. I see you, Shan George. I see you, goodness. Thank God it's Friday. So good to see you. I'm excited to see everyone tonight. This particular Friday, I'm so excited because my week has been long, and I know it may have been the same for most of us this week. But hey, thank God it's Friday. It's really Friday. It's the end of a work week for most of us, right? I want you to type TGIF and where you're joining in from. Welcome, everyone. Please, if I do not call your name, it's not intentional. Type TGIF and where you're joining in from. Woo! Let's keep it going on. Good evening, Chiamaka. Nice to have you here. Welcome. Great. So, tonight we're going to wrap up the conversation on creating meaningful conversation with a special focus on when it gets lonely. This particular topic was laid right here. It was laid in my heart. And I just know we have to talk about this. We have to deal with this. Thank you, everyone, for putting in where you're joining in from. Thank you. Keep it coming in. Welcome, Jennifer. Nice to have you here. This particular topic is just right here in my heart because for those of us in Nigeria, we're in very uncertain times, very tough times, right? Tough times do not last, but tough people do. So I just want to encourage us that this is a phase and we're going to get through that phase. And I know that at times like this, we can get lonely, especially when you're going through stress, the stress from the environment, the stress from trying to meet up your goals, the stress from trying to meet up with your responsibility, some of us with academics, some with our business, some in our work areas. It's just a lot of stress with the increase in fuel price, with the increase in transportation. Food stuff is just so difficult that at times we forget to just pause and breathe. We just feel so lonely. Have you ever experienced, right? You're in the midst of a lot of people, yet you feel quite lonely. It's as if no one is seeing you, no one is hearing you, no one can understand what you're going through. And there's a whole lot happening around you, and you're just wondering, oh my goodness, I feel so lonely. So loneliness is not really, in this sense, is not really the absence of people around you. Yes, that could be it, but it could also be the absence of trusted people to talk to. Victoria says, but it's just beginning of work for me as I just got back to work this afternoon, working straight to Tuesday. Wow, I'm catching up from the UK and so pleased to be back. Thank you so much. How is the weather? Then guess it's summer and it may be quite hot. Hot, hot, hot. Thank you. And I wish you a very pleasant work week. This is a lot of back to back work. I wish you a very pleasant work week. And thank you for making out time to join us here. Ijoma, thank you for joining in. Njideka, Chidema, thank you for all joining in. And with everything happening, and it's not just a Nigerian problem, by the way, it's a global phenomenon. There's a lot of economic hardship going on right now, and people are feeling the impact in one way or the other. And so, when this is happening, sometimes because you don't feel comfortable sharing with people around you, with your family or friends, you just begin to feel lonely. Sometimes, as well, it's not just that, it's also when good things happen to you. You know how you could work so hard for something, you struggle so hard to achieve that goal. Perhaps it's a promotion at your workplace. Bam, it falls on your table and you get that promotion. With all after the celebration, the happiness, the laughter, then that feeling of loneliness starts, you know, trickling in. It starts trickling in. And in the midst of that happiness, that celebration, you're just feeling lonely inside of you. Like it just hits you and you're feeling so all alone, all alone, and yet you have a lot of people around you. What can we do? The first thing I want us to know is feeling lonely periodically is normal, is okay. We all at one point or the other will feel lonely. You can feel lonely in your marriage, you can feel lonely in your workplace, you can feel lonely in your home, you can feel lonely, in your business. And it's okay. Now, where it becomes worrisome is if the sense of loneliness persists. So, there are two levels of loneliness that we're talking about tonight. The first level is that periodic one that comes in as a result of stress, as a result of loss, as a result of challenges, new heights. That kind of loneliness comes in periodically, and that's okay. We'll talk about how to deal with that. But there's this advanced level of loneliness that comes in. This one comes in, it's not periodic, it settles. And if you don't know how to handle it, you start tilting into feeling depressed. Jennifer says, I felt so 2 days ago and I cried my eyes out. Yes. And how are you feeling? I guess you feel better. It happens to me sometimes. You don't all of a sudden hit, you're feeling lonely in the midst of that huge achievement and you feel so lonely and you're wondering, wow, what is happening to me? It's normal. It's normal. As long as it's periodic, it's not settled, it's not something that stays with you all the time. It's okay. We need to work out how do we deal with this when it comes. And like Jennifer said, she said she cried her eyes out. Sometimes you just vent by crying. Like when you cry yourself out, you feel much better. Crying is not always a bad thing. But in that life, we get to feel that when you cry, it means that you're weak. You can't help yourself. No. Sometimes it helps you, it's therapeutic to cry. You just cry, you let it all out, and you feel a whole lot better. And then you clear your head, you clear your heart, you clear your emotions, and you're ready to do the next thing you need to get done, right? So it's also important to know that tears is one way of, crying is one way of helping us to relieve pent up emotions. So when you get to that point where you're feeling that level of periodic loneliness, the first thing I'll ask you to do there, because at that point it's difficult for you to be very rational. It's very difficult for you to, think straight. At that point when you're feeling so lonely, for most people, you're already beginning to feel emotional. And when you're deeply emotional, it's difficult to make informed and good decisions, right? So it's just good to step back and just pause. It's okay to take a pause. It's okay to take a break. There's nothing wrong. And that's why that loneliness that comes with too much, you have a target to meet. You have this target to meet. You need to meet this. Sometimes you need to take a break. And this is for all of us, even for myself. This is telling all of us that it's okay to take a break because the world is so fast paced. Everything is happening so quickly. We always feel the tendency to just keep jumping in, and not just pausing to take a break, to smell the roses, to feel us, to feel attuned with ourselves it brings on this sense of loneliness. Now, loneliness can also come from betrayal. When you've been betrayed by someone so close, it could be your partner, it could be your best friend, and you just feel like, what is all of this? And you just feel as if there's no one out there for you, right? You feel so lonely. Victoria says, exactly, crying is therapeutic, and I do it sometimes help me feel better. And yes, I also do it at times too. Chidima says, exactly, when trying to get people to align with your level of mentality and exposure. Yes. So the key thing I want us to take out of this tonight is that feeling lonely is normal, is okay. So don't think there's anything wrong when you get to feel lonely. Especially when it comes periodically, that's fine. That's not a cause for concern, right? Excuse me. When it comes periodically, that's fine. That's not really a cause for concern. But I want us to also think about, how do we get prepared for it? How do we handle it? One of the things that I find that helps a lot is crying. Yeah. I know you may say, why, yeah, why? It's not a sign of weakness. It's the way you just, like, how will I put it? You um take care of your inner emotions. You allow yourself to be you, to feel in tune with what you're feeling. You allow the tears to drop. There is something that it does to your emotions. It just clears it up. It helps you feel a whole lot better. You cry, you let it all out, and you're fine. And then you're good to go, right? That's one way some people deal with it. Another way is by talking. Either you talk to friends, talk to trusted allies, or even to strangers. Mm. I know you may say strangers. Yeah. Sometimes when is that level of loneliness, you might feel less self conscious talking to someone who doesn't know you, who you probably will never see again. There's this kind of feeling of freedom you have to speak to them, because you know what? The probability of running into this person again might be 1 in 1,000, 1 in 1,000,000. But only share what you're comfortable with sharing, right? And so talking to strangers does help, but not to pour out your, very personal stuff. So you don't want to scare the person away. Or I'll put so much burden on the person, right? So talking also helps. It relieves you of that pent up emotions. You can talk about why you feel this way. And just by talking, sometimes you get a release. You even begin to identify why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And if the person is a professional, maybe like a coach or a senior mentor, the person can really guide you through identifying why you're feeling how the way you're feeling, and at the end of the day, you feel better. Another way to get to handle loneliness is volunteering. Believe it or not, when you volunteer for a good cause, you get to invest in something other than yourself. It helps you to forget a lot of what you're dealing with, and you involuntarily even begin to see some of your blessings, right? I make my children volunteer in most of the programs at my foundation, what the program that we do. So whenever they're around, they're back from school, I get them to volunteer. And in so doing, I get them to see that beyond you, life is not just all about you. You need to also look at how you can support other people. And when you're feeling lonely and you get to the point where you can volunteer, you can think about the next person. There's a level of joy it brings to your heart, a level of satisfaction, and that takes care of that feeling of loneliness. You know you're not alone. You begin to see some of your blessings that you haven't even seen. That quiet time may be a blessing that nature has given to you, and you're not seeing it as that because you're so invested in your feelings and everything happening around you, and you can't see it for what it is. So volunteering for a good cause also helps you to get out of the feeling of loneliness. What about strengthening existing relationships? You may want to look around you. Who is within your circle of influence? That may be a good time to reach out to talk. You will be shocked at some level of commonalities that you share with someone you didn't even know. When you spend time getting to know the person a little bit better, you say, wow, I didn't know. Haven't you heard sometimes people say, I didn't know this about you. I'm glad that we got to talk. I'm glad that we got to spend some time together. I've had to say that to some colleagues, to some associates, to say, wow, I'm glad we got to spend some time together. This helped me to get to know you better. And in doing that, you know, it gives you the opportunity to know the person better, to look at things from outside your own perspective, and it takes away that feeling of loneliness, right? So these are some of the things that you can, even getting busy. If your feeling of loneliness doesn't come from being busy, then getting yourself busy may be a way. But if your loneliness comes from stress, when you're stressed out, then getting busy might not be an option for you. So the key thing here is understand who you are, understand what is making you feel lonely. Sometimes you can't place your finger on it, and that's fine. When you cannot, just try to do some of these things I've suggested, and it can help you feel better. Victoria says, volunteering. This helped me a lot when we first moved into UK, and I almost fell into depression. Right. That was the best thing I did for myself at that time. Thank you so much for mentioning that. Great. I'm happy that someone else is validating it. Volunteering. In our client, we make light of this. We make light of volunteering. And so people want to do things because of what they can get out of it. Let me tell you, sometimes what you get out of it is that deep peace, that deep sense of fulfillment, that joy. I always look forward to a Leave No Child Behind Christmas party every December because, you just see the smiles on the faces of the children, the indigent women, and I carry that joy with me weeks, for weeks, knowing that my team and I were able to put this level of happiness on the face and in the hearts of other people gives me a sense of satisfaction. So volunteering, identifying some organization around your area, go to them, find out what they do. If it's within your area of interest, please do volunteer. You can also volunteer your expertise. If you're a coach, if you're an accountant, if you're a public speaking coach, or perhaps you are a graphic designer, you could decide to identify a business that you can support with your expertise, right? With your time, and they'll be so excited. They'll be so excited, and it will give you a sense of belonging. It gives you a sense of satisfaction. Chinelo says, yes, there's a level of fulfillment it brings to me. Volunteering is helpful. Great. Barista Chi also says, in the days of New York, volunteering as a counselor every week made me see life from a different perspective. It is fulfilling. Thank you so much for doing that. Hugging a loved one does magic. Oh my goodness. I love this. Hugging. I love hugs. I remember when we had the EON prayer walks at meet, I just love to hug. You're giving a part of you and you're receiving. There's an exchange that happens, just feeling that warmth. And we took some of these things for granted. This touch, hug, we took some of these things for granted until COVID happened. When COVID happened, we realized that, hey, for even those of us saying, oh, I'm an introvert, I like my space, people like me that will say I like my space, we had enough of the space and we got tired of it. We started missing that warmth, that touch, that personal contact. So hugging, if you're a hug person, my daughter loves to hug a lot. Oh my goodness. And I was that days ago that she said, oh mom, give me a hug. You haven't given me a hug yet. So hugging does it. Sometimes she notices I'm stressed and she'll say, mom, I need to hug you. My hug will help you. I'm like, no, I don't need you. And she just be hugging me, and I'll start laughing. And it does help me a lot. Hello, Divine. How are you doing? So, hugging can also help, right? So, we've mentioned a number of things that can help you when you feel lonely. And another one I've not mentioned is journaling. I love to write and I love to journal. So, you can journal, have your book, you can journal, just writing how you feel. Writing helps me declutter, it helps me get clarity on even how I'm feeling, and it helps me make sense of a whole lot of stuff. So, I would also recommend writing, journaling. Just write down how you feel without filters. You don't need to filter it, it's your personal space. Write, just keep writing. The more you pour it out and you give it some level of description, you find out that healing comes from there, and the sense of loneliness starts leaving you. By the time you're done writing, you will just feel so good and so excited, right? So writing is something that you want to also invest in. What about worship? For those who are believers, worship songs. Oh my goodness. I love listening to worship music when I am down, when I'm out. I will just play worship songs and I will soak myself in that. Whew, I just can go on and on. And by the time I'm done, by the time I spend time in that worship presence, I come out so energized. So for some people, it might not be worship music, but it might just be music generally, right? Chiamaka says, listening to music when I'm stressed also helped me a lot. It helps me to come out of it quickly. So different strokes for different folks, right? The key thing here is identify what works for you. I want to really encourage us not to dwell in that sense of loneliness. Bryce Chigoze says, yeah, journaling. My first book came out of my journaling of 2013. That's it. Jennifer says, music is it for me too. That's it. So find out what works for you, right? We don't want us to dwell in that place of loneliness, because by the time you dwell in it, whatever you focus on expands. The more you keep focusing on that sense of loneliness, that sense of desertation, and you start remembering all the things that had gone wrong, what is not working, you lose sight of your many blessings. And at the point where you lose sight of your many blessings, you begin to even question your existence. And that's the space we don't want to go in. We want to always remain in the space of gratitude. That when loneliness hits us, we know what works for us and we just tune into it. And by this, I'm telling someone tonight, it is okay to feel lonely periodically. Nothing is wrong with you. You do not need deliverance at all. It is not that any demonic thing is after you. Your village people are not after you. It is just human nature happening. It's important that you know what helps you to snap out of it and just key into that. Give yourself time. When you get into whatever it is that helps you feel better, it's not going to work like magic. It's going to take time. If it's music, allow yourself to just dwell in that space. Listen to the music. Give yourself up to the music. If it's writing, give yourself time to write exhaustively. But the key thing here is to know that you are not alone. You're not alone. Feeling lonely is something that hits us. Now, before I go into talking about the sense of loneliness that really stays, that's one that drags us into a sense of depression. I want us to tell us again. I've said it before, but I also want to reiterate it for those who are just joining us, to know that it's not only challenges, it's not only where you hit barriers or obstacles that could make you feel lonely. Sometimes a major victory, a major achievement will just drag you to the other side. Remember the story of Elijah. One would have thought after defeating the Baal priests or prophets, he would have felt so energized and all that. But right from that major testimony, and he heard that Queen Jezebel was after him, he got afraid that he had to go and hide in the cave, right? And God had to send the raven to feed him. So just know that you're not alone. Sometimes you go through a major payment you've been waiting for months, suddenly hits your account. And when you see the money, it's not you to start rejoicing. Maybe you find yourself rejoicing next thing, this sense of loneliness and despair just come over you. And you say, wow, what next? What next? What next? My dear, it is normal. It is normal for you to feel that way. So just find what works for you and don't allow that feeling to dwell in you, and just move forward. It's a sign that you're normal, you're healthy emotionally, because you need to feel that way sometimes. But the key thing is learning how to deal with it, learning how to manage it so that it doesn't take over you. Fina says, I experienced it this afternoon. I worshipped and I cried. Now I feel better, only for you to treat this tonight. Thank you, mommy. I love you so much, Fina. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you so much. Uzeka says hugs instantly boosts oxytocin levels, which heals feelings of loneliness, isolation, and anger. I love hugs. I beg, line up for your hugs. Hugs now go on loneliness. She says hug cures loneliness. Miracle that says volunteering to help others gives me so much joy. It's fulfilling to see others happy. And this goes on and on and on. Welcome, Madam Nike, House of Excellence. We're here. Thank you so much. Welcome, welcome. It's so good to see you. So just know that it's normal, right? And that whether it is the loss or challenge or major achievement, loneliness will creep in at some point. But don't give it to it and dwell in it. Do something that can lift up your spirit. Remember, we talked about volunteering, you know, talking to strangers or to loved ones, music, prayers, going out. Sometimes you can decide to go out and watch movie, and by the time you watch the movie you just be laughing, you come back, you're feeling so good. Find out what works for you, journaling, and just do it. Do it and do it. You just need to find out what makes you feel good, right? Self-care. Some of what we've talked about is all about self-care. You need to take care of yourself. You need to take care of your emotions. Taking care of yourself entails you understanding when you're feeling such is feeling that feeling off, and taking steps to make sure that you feel better. I have some close friends, and for some I just tell them, I said, hey sis, I need to vent. Some I call, I say, you know what, I'm not feeling good today. I'm not feeling good at all. And then just talking and laughing, and you just feel so much better. So find out what works for you. Now, when you find out that this sense of loneliness isn't going away, despite all of these things we've talked about, you've tried writing, you've listened to music, you've practiced self care, you've talked to people, and it's not working out. Listen, then it may be time for you to see a professional. There is absolutely nothing wrong for you to go see a therapist. In our climate, Nigeria, we run away. We think that is when suku is happening, when you're having some mental condition and all of that, or you're dysfunctional. No, it doesn't really mean that. It just means that you can't help yourself and you need an expert help. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's better to seek help on time than to allow yourself to dwell into in depression until you start, um, having suicidal thoughts. And that's why a number of people commit suicide, because they didn't get help on time. So there is nothing to be ashamed of it. If there's someone around you that you notice is having that sense of depression, feeling lonely, it may be time to help that person get professional help. These are people who are trained. They are really trained, and you can't get it elsewhere. If it's that, long lasting feeling of loneliness, then we need to get to the root cause. There is something more internal, more sustaining, perhaps from your childhood, perhaps from relationship that you cannot identify what it is. This is where the therapist will help you, the professional will help you to identify what really is the cause of what you're feeling and help you walk through it. So those ones need to be handled, and they need to be handled by a professional. And I please beg of you, when you notice that you have people coming to you seeking help, and you find out that the case is not one that you can help, this one is tilting towards requiring a professional case, professional assistance, do not hesitate. It's not about failure, it's a success that you could even identify that is beyond your scope, and the person needs to be referred to therapies that can really help them. You're doing the person a whole lot of good, right? So please don't hesitate to seek for professional help when you get to feel lonely. And listen, now, in Nigeria, a lot is happening. There's a lot happening, and it's time for us to really lean in. So if you do not have a coping system, that is why we're discussing this tonight. If you don't have a coping system for managing stress, for managing loneliness, this is the time to start reflecting on all that we have discussed tonight and ask yourself, what will help me feel better? What helps me to feel good? What helps me to feel happy? You know, identify them and start defining what your coping mechanism would look like. Please, this is when to do that, because people are being hit. It's as if when we're coming out from here, we're now falling into this one. A few days ago, Central Bank announced that they are moving up lending rates 25 points up, and that lending rate becomes 18.5% when the economy is struggling, when people are struggling. So what happens to business owners? Some people who really need to get loans to do their business, what happens to them? 18.5%. Wow. Right? So begin to look at how you can really manage this. For some people, you've taken loans, you've taken a lot of loans either from family or friends or from formal business institutions, lending institutions, and you're wondering, how do I get out of this? There is always a way. Believe me, there's always a way. There is nothing in this life that doesn't have an alternative. It's only death. So as long as you are alive, as long as you're breathing, as long as you're hearing this message, I want you to know that there is always an alternative. Do not give up. The only thing that do not have remedy is death. That's the only thing. So you see that situation you think is hopeless. My dear, I tell you today there is hope. There is hope. You just need to give yourself the permission to believe, to trust, and to seek help. And to seek help. Prayer is also very key. I can't tell you how many times I've had to run to God in prayer. Excuse me, and He provided some direction. So when you get to that point, please do not feel too lonely to pray. That's the time when you need to even pray more. I think I read a post from Iroma, was it today or yesterday, where she said, when it becomes too difficult to pray, that is even when you need to pray the more, right? So I just want to say thank you to everyone who tuned in here. And before we wrap up, can you tell me what you're taking away from this session? I always want to be sure that I'm serving value, right? What are you taking away from the session tonight? What is something you can say, I'm going away with this tonight? Either this has validated my thoughts or my action, or this is what I'm moving forward with. Please put it in the chat box. I want to read from you. Good evening, Iroba. Nice to have you here. Thank you for joining us, Floxy. God bless you. Divine, Aguchinema. I see you. And every other person I'm not mentioning your name, please do forgive me. It's not deliberate, right? Thank you for joining us. And I look forward to the month of August. It's going to be another amazing time of Friday Night Hangout as we discuss very interesting topic, the month of August. I'm going to keep you guessing what it is, but don't touch that dial. Make sure you join us next week Friday for another exciting time of Friday Night Hangout. And just before I sign up, okay, I have a first comment from Miracle. She says, listening to music inspires me a lot. It brings me much relief. Thank you so much. Also, thank you for sharing. Chidima says, there's always hope. That is it. Oh my goodness. I love this. There is always hope. I want you to roll with this. At day zero to midnight, thank you for joining in. I want you to roll with this tonight that there's always hope. And I'm going to sign out on this note. Just know that when you feel lonely, when you think everyone has deserted you, when it seems as if the world is coming in on you, just know that there's always hope. On this note, I say God bless and keep you. Have a beautiful, wonderful weekend. Remember to practice self care, and I look forward to seeing you next week, Friday. Until I see you next week, Friday, stay blessed, stay joyful, and remember that there is always hope. Bye for now. See you.